They say tough times make strong men. Strong men make easier times. And easier times make weak men. I want you to think about that for a moment and think about where we're at. Seems to me things are getting a little tougher and the men are still getting weaker. If that's the case, we've got a lot tougher times ahead of us. And that makes me want to be even stronger. In this video, I'm just going to do a little bit of commentary on things. A little bit of hopefully motivation. Because even now, 42. I lived a rather easy life for most of my life. Wasn't really much struggles, troubles. A lot of stuff was self-inflicted. Kind of like water, just easy going with the flow, doing whatever. And about the time I was 35 or so, we moved out here and started homesteading. That has made me a lot stronger of an individual. And do you guys remember Biodome? Now I'm not talking about the Pauly Shore, Stephen Baldwin movie, but the actual biodomes they had, I think they had one, what? Earth something 2, I think it was. Biosphere 2, because the first one was the Earth, so they were going to make a second one. You know, people are thinking we're going to colonize Mars and other things. I don't buy it for a minute. We're not going to colonize the moon, we're not going to colonize Mars, but they're thinking of, you know, got to prepare for that stuff because of climate change, right? So they built this dome. And what they find in those domes, the trees grow faster than they do out in the real world. But you know what the problem is? Eventually they disassemble themselves. Those trees break apart and they fall over. Why? Well, they've got the soil, they've got the nutrients, they've got the water, they've got the sunlight, but they don't have the wind. They don't make the stress wood. The wood that gets made from blowing back and forth and having to hold yourself up. So the trees, because they're growing in such an easy environment, they're weak. They're too weak to even support themselves. Think about that for a moment. But out in the wild, the trees that get exposed to things, all of a sudden they're supporting themselves, they're supporting birds' nests and squirrel nests, they're supporting, you know, hornet hives, they're supporting others, besides just being stand-up trees themselves. As I was contemplating just that repeating cycle, tough times making stronger men, able to do things, making the times easier, but then those easier times making weak men. And those weak men creating tough times, not just for themselves, but for others. You know, I'm sitting there watching a YouTube video and an ad pops up. The ad is supposed to be encouraging me to buy something. And there's men in the video, but everyone's just dancing around like a bunch of sissies. You know? That doesn't make me want to do whatever they're doing. I want nothing to do with it. Whatever the product is. I don't care if you're really good at dancing like a pansy. That's what men do these days? Wear skin-tight jeans and dance around like Madonna did back in her Vogue video or something, and that's what's trending these days? I don't care. That's not the direction I'm going. It's not the life I'm living. It made me really glad to be even just raising my children in an environment where they have responsibilities. They have chores. They help. Earlier today, I got a bunch of firewood. It's in 5 to 6 foot long logs because I just needed to move it out of the way at the time. I wasn't splitting it all and cutting all the length. But when I put in the driveway here in 2017, it's covered with some repurposed barn tin free source stuff I got from whatever jobs. But I was cutting some of it up today. And my 5-year-old walks up to me while I was working on another project for some trim for this new barnwood stuff we put here from old repurposed fence pickets. And he says, "Dad, what can I do to help?" And I said, you want a job to do? He says, yeah. And I said, well, we can take a bunch of that wood there and you can throw it in the woodshed. So you don't need to worry about stacking it. We'll just keep it out of the elements. We'll burn it. And next thing you know, the 2-year-old and the 5-year-old, little boys, they come out and they're working together, and they've got kind of like a rickshaw type pull behind cart. And they're putting all the wood on there, and the little guy hops on there, the 2-year-old, and the 5-year-old picks up the cart full of wood and his 2-year-old brother and pulls it over to the woodshed, and they unload it. I am glad to be raising my children in such an environment. They could just be watching Disney movies on the, some tablet or something. They could just be sitting there watching cartoons in a land of make-believe, being indoctrinated with who knows what underlying agenda. They're not. They're out in the real world doing real stuff. And it made me just think about the fact that we, by living the lifestyle we are, my children have a connection to things. So they're saving seeds, they're planting seeds, they're watering seeds, they're weeding, they're harvesting, they're canning. Like they have a connection to things. They go through motions. I just shot a deer yesterday morning. We'll be cutting that up. I'll have probably at least the oldest 4 of my children sitting there with aprons on and knives, just going to town cutting everything up. Why? Because they want to help. But it's doing those type of things, doing the difficult things that are going to build them up in their character, in their integrity, in their capability, in their understanding. That's going to be amazing for them. And even like with the chores, they have a responsibility. They have to get out there and do their chores every morning and every night. If they don't do them, or they don't lock them up properly or stuff like that, animals will die. They have lives depending on them, just like I do. And of course, it's in a different realm, but they have responsibility. That's going to build stuff in them. If you guys have children, give them responsibility. If you guys, I don't care how old you are, do things now to make yourself a stronger person. Okay? A lot of the stuff I do DIY, do it myself. My way of homesteading is like living a third world life, a more third world life in a first world nation. It's whatever free sources and scraps and things that I can't make or grow that I can acquire, that I can repurpose to make life awesome. Somebody was done with this back in Wisconsin, so we brought it down here with us. I just had to get the top re-welded on. Boom, hooked it up. These stones here are from the creek. And behind there is some barn tin too. So there's actually like a whole air pockets behind there, and this wall can heat up. Air can go in at the bottom and come out the top, But these are fence pickets I took down from a job and repurposed, It's doing things and creating things and putting effort into things. And there's a reward just in the accomplishment for yourself, but then there's the building the muscles, there's the building the character, the creativity, these things. And think about it too in this day and age. Why are so many things getting pushed so far as agendas that wouldn't have flown, 50, 60 years ago? Well, because people don't want to stand up to the pressure. Oh, if you speak that out loud in public, there's going to be some pressure applied to you. What do people do? Just like a biodome tree, they fall over, they bend under the weight, they give in, they break right away. They don't resist. If they resisted, they'd get more of that STRESSWOOD in their character, in their nature. Then they'd be able to withstand it even easier next time because they would have strength of integrity. Things are true and things are and things are lies. There's a reality and there's a facade. There's the make-believe, and then there's the raw and real and organic. I don't want to live a synthetic life. I don't want to put some filter on and put little animal ears up on me and prance around in skin-tight jeans and set that example for my children or other people's children, because a lot of them seem to be sterile or not reproducing or buying into the agendas. You know what I mean? Even with Mama Pepper and I, we have 8 children now. That's going to give us a little more STRESSWOOD as we deal with life. But what type of people are we going to be because of it? It's amazing. I've had people say they'd rather watch all of my children than one of somebody else's. Why? That's going to be on. My exhortation to others is don't live in a biodome. Don't do it. And if it's just the simple gravy train, easy life, not that it's always easy, but you may want to do more things yourself. You may want to acquire more skills. I know a man who brings a lot to the table. I mean, he's got a skill set like crazy, but he's also a real guy, meaning that he doesn't just think something's a neat idea. If he thinks it's a neat idea and worthwhile, he'll do it. I was talking to him about bow fishing and, the carp spawning and stuff like that. Next thing I know, I'm looking at we're video chatting. I'm like, man, where are you? And he goes, well, I'm down at the lake. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I think the carp are spawning. I'm like, man, hold on a second. So I went down there and I said, well, yeah, those are the carp spawning. I said, in fact, in a couple hours, the suckers are going to be running and we'll be able to pull an amazing harvest. If you want me to show you, hang out. Come over for dinner. We'll wait a couple hours and we'll go down by the lake. And that night I sent him home with a cooler full of 50 or 60 decent sized suckers. And then out of nowhere, his family got to fillet a whole pile of fish and do all that stuff. But I mean, even that, rising up early, staying up late, getting your hands dirty, doing all that stuff. I got to work tomorrow, but I probably got to work tomorrow at like 9 or 9:30 I got to leave. Which means if I wake up at 6:30, I can hunt till probably about 8. And even if I get a deer, I might have to leave it with the children. And they'll take care of it. They know some of that stuff. I want them to learn more and more. But who wants to wake up early? How many times have I woken up early to even go fishing? When we go gar fishing, a lot of times we'll wake up and watch the sunrise and jug fish some gar from the kayaks there. In fact, that guy I was talking about, I'll link a video from my fishing channel. He showed up and let's do it, I like people like that. Be the ones to do it. That guy, big skill set, right? He just took some culinary butcher course, so he had a bigger skill set. I'm like, man, as if you don't bring enough to the table, in the potluck of life, you bring so much to the table and you're still out there acquiring new skills. That's what we need to be doing. Don't live in a biodome. Actually be exposed to the pressures and the wind and the stresses of life and build up within yourself that STRESSWOOD. Become a stronger individual, and even if it's not, physical, intellectually become stronger. Have a mind that's sharper and keener and better at problem solving, able to retain more things because you're using it so you don't lose it. With your integrity, be that person. I don't want to be a double-minded man. I don't want to be a person of compromise. But when I look out, it is everywhere. And I know where that path leads because once you start, it's like opening a dam. It's going to let loose and there's going to be so much compromise. There's going to be so many, if you want to say like spiritual shortcuts taken or compromises of the truth. Or, a little bit of dishonest business leads to a whole bunch, right? You don't want to start on those things. And the more you give in, the weaker you become. The less able to resist you are, and the more you've trained yourself to be weak, to be compromised, to go with the flow. And have you seen the flow? Have you seen the flow? Man, I got a video I'll link. It gets into more of that stuff. I don't want to go with the flow. I don't want to be a spoke in the wheel of the machine. I don't like the machine. I want to do what's right. I want to do what's raw. I do want to do what's real. And I don't mind if I get exposed to things that I have to resist and they make me stronger. Basically, there's a lot of weak men about to make some tough times a whole lot tougher. Prepare yourself ahead of time to be able to withstand the storms that are coming. Don't be those who contribute to it. It is amazing what passes for an adult these days. It's amazing what passes for an educated person these days. It's amazing what passes for a man or a woman these days. Now's probably a good time to start resisting. When the pressure comes in and it's wrong pressure, just like that tree. If that tree sat there and took all the pressure that the wind had to give it the first time, it'd be laying flat. but it resists, it holds itself up. And those trees in that biodome that were never exposed, that they don't have the capability, eventually they cannot support their own weight. Why do we call this place the Abundant Harvest Homestead? Because I want to reap an abundant harvest. I want to have such a harvest coming off this property that I can't help but bless others with it, because our cup runneth over. You know what I mean? I don't want to just support myself. I think I touched on this in one of the recent videos, at least in the comment section, is, somebody was whining and complaining about stuff. I made an example of them to a degree and explained some things, but it's like, I am one man who, with God's help and provision, feeds 10 mouths on a daily basis. And you have able-bodied people out there who cannot take care of themselves. There's a difference. Don't be that person. Don't be that biodome tree that can't even support yourself. Be the one who is so fruitful and so capable that you're blessing others. Okay? Not everyone is fully able to take care of everything. It's good to bless others. It's good to be there. We can all use help from time to time. But when you're just an overgrown baby on your mama's teat, or the government's teat, or your neighbor's teat, and that's how you live, and you just are like a leech, looking to somebody else for all of your provision, and doing nothing but laying around soiling yourself, that's not the life I want for me. That's not the adults I want my children to become one day. So, we're going to live this lifestyle. We're going to gain some real skill sets. As I learn in my 40s, my children that are 12 and under can learn. That's awesome. Because those skills, or things about those skills, can be applied later in their life. So, that's it. Hopefully you found it encouraging. If there's more on this subject that you want to say, leave it in the comment section. I'm going to try to be down there more on my videos. I appreciate all the stuff you guys say. I read the vast majority of them. I usually at least try to give them a thumbs up and stuff, but I want to be a little more interactive, because I really appreciate you guys, and I want to show that by interacting more. So if you guys got more to say on the subject than what I've already said, feel free. Drop a comment below. We'll see you next time. Papa out.